So the minute Brigadoon was over, I started my ballet lessons. And luckily, it was in the basement of a candy store, so there was no storefront exposure. You know, I don't want to get a pedicure in a window, and I don't want to be in tights in a window. I mean, especially then. Now I'm so tired, I'm over it. But then, I didn't want the neighborhood, the boys in school, to find out that I was going to take a ballet lesson. You know, in Brigadoon, all the athletes, and I said the intellectuals, everybody was in Brigadoon, and then they went back to the real world. Well, I was in Brigadoon, and I said, I have to dance. See, it was almost like what happens in Brigadoon stays in Brigadoon, a la Las Vegas, you know? But it was, for me, it was the beginning of the rest of my life. So we found a ballet school, we made an appointment for me to take my first ballet class, and down the little staircase I go. And for some reason, I brought long underwear and bedroom slippers for my first class. So I go in to take my first ballet class. And that's all it took. The girls, the lines they were achieving, the teacher, a male teacher who came out from New York every week, the music. In an instant, I knew I wanted to be a ballet dancer. But the minute the word got out that Steve was taking ballet lessons was the beginning of a really nasty change. The phone calls that I made stopped being answered. This is all the men, by the way. The women were totally fine, and they were young girls, but they were fine. I did not receive the phone calls from the friends that I used to get. The bullying, and way before it was recognized and people are doing something about it now, which is so wonderful, was really, really horrendous. And then in gym class, Steve, the funny one, who just can't seem to do anything, was now being physically knocked around, and it wasn't pretty. The last straw was when I took my little girlfriend, Fran, who was going to the Catholic school, not to the public high school, to a dance, and it was outdoors, and I couldn't wait to show her off and be there, and then show off because I thought I was this great, frug dancer. And it was outdoors, and it was spring, and we got there and holding hands, and I was so crazy about her. This guy from high school who looked like James Dean, who I used to look at and love to look at from afar and wonder, why do I like looking at this guy? And anyway, and his crowd came up to me because Francine was beautiful, and no one really knew her because she went to another school. She was my neighbor. And they started shoving me, and I was holding hands with her. And I lost my voice, and I lost any kind of self-strength or confidence, and they shoved me so hard that I fell on my back on the pavement. And I tried so hard not to cry, and when I got up, she was gone. She left with them, and that to me was that was the last straw. Now I needed to speak with someone, and it was Mom. Who else? Genevieve, my best friend. So I went home and I just fell apart. And I said, Mom, please, I've tried, and it's been going on for months. It's the end of the school year. Please, please don't make me go back to this high school for 11th grade. I understand there are schools in New York, high schools that cater to professional kids, whether they're singers, models, actors, dancers, whether they're working or whether they're training, and they design the academic schedule around the kids' needs. And then I can go to a ballet school in New York and take 2 or 3 classes a day instead of 2 or 3 a week. Please, Mom, please let me do this. I cannot go back there. And she understood the seriousness of the bullying and that it wouldn't get any better. This was an incredible woman. But she said, Stephen, your father is not going to agree to paying for a private school in New York and ballet classes. That's a lot of money, whether or not he can afford it. And commuting and food money, that's a whole different thing to ask for on a dream, after dancing for 3 months, 4 months, and 2 classes a week. I said, just explain to him. And I really couldn't relate to my father, so I couldn't talk to him myself. She said, what about a scholarship to a ballet school in New York? Is that a possibility? I said, I'll find out. I'll find out from my friends. And she said, I'll work on your father, but don't bring it up. I will let you know. Well, I found out about a school in New York called the Joffrey ballet. And the teacher came in, he was very sharp, he was military-like, he was very direct. The pianist was very loud, he was very loud, the teacher smoked, the pianist had a cigarette. It was like a movie. It was very dramatic. And I felt I did a great job. It just felt good. It was more my level, too. It wasn't so advanced. So I went back into the office, and the secretary said, well, this teacher feels you're very talented. You've been given a full scholarship, and you start on Monday. Well, I did it. I went to Joffrey every day for the summer intensive for the entire summer. It was 2 and 3 classes a week, and this teacher felt I was so promising that he gave me a private class every Saturday. And it was intense, and I made very quick improvement. But he told me, you're fat. I went from, you're a little chubby and you're a little old to, you're fat. He would see me in a restaurant eating my cheese bacon burger and my French fries and my milkshake in between my classes, and I would have it again in between the next class, you're fat. So I heard that when I was young. Now I'm still young, you're fat. And it was really kind of annoying, but whatever. Anyway, after the summer course, I said to my mother, well, high school is going to start. And she said, well, Dad came through, so you're going to go to professional children's school, which was wonderful. And so I started the school year, and I learned this schedule, which was around my ballet classes, and they designed it very specifically to my class schedule. My father started to basically ignore me. He wouldn't let my mother pick me up at the bus when I got home at 10 o'clock at night, and I walked the mile and a half or whatever it was, winter, spring, summer, fall. If she left a hot plate for food for me, he would be mad at her, and then he would take it out on her. It really bothered me. I was angered by it, and I resented him especially for treating my mother that way. And I thought, this is not a whim. This is what your son wants to do with his life. He wants to be a dancer. But the joy of what I was experiencing in New York outweighed that treatment from my father, and off I went. And after a year at the Joffrey, I got up the courage to audition for the New York City Ballet's official school, the School of American Ballet. And up another staircase I went, this one very direct, into a very elegant and formal setting, much different than Joffrey. Joffrey was organic and loud and hands-on and fantastic training, but this was an entirely different setting. And I had a very short audition. You do this to the right, you do this to the left, you do this to the right, and now we're going to go in the center, now you're going to turn, now you're going to jump, that's it. They had a perfect idea of what I was for them. Did I have the chance to get into the school? Yes, I did. They said, we're going to give you a scholarship and watch you for a year very closely, and if you show significant improvement, we'll keep you. But you're a little chubby and you're a little old. Thank you. So the old came back, and the fat went back to chubby. Okay, so I thought, have I lost weight? I think I'm still growing. So it was a really interesting combination of two great masters that I was working for, and their approach to working with dancers was extremely different. Balanchine was very confident with the works that he had built. And if he came backstage and was upset with us after a performance, he wasn't upset because his ballet wasn't seen at the level that he expected it to be seen. He didn't have that kind of an insecure ego about his work. You know, Frank Lloyd Wright is a Frank Lloyd Wright, whether or not it needs a paint job. So he was fun to work with. He walked into the room, he knew the score, he was a master musician, and it was in his blood, so he had fun. He moved us around like checkers, tried this, if it didn't work, try that, and he'd be happy at the end of the day, and it would work. It would be fine. Jerome Robbins was very different. As accomplished and as talented as Jerome Robbins was, he was very insecure about his work. And he loved Balanchine, and Balanchine was his mentor, and he looked up to him. So Jerry, as we called him, would come in some days, and there would be a very dark mood with him. Jerry brought his problems, his personal demons, to work with him sometimes because he just didn't have the equipment to get rid of it. So when he was happy and he was on a roll, so to speak, things were amazing. But when he was not happy, you became, if you weren't the lucky one, if you didn't dodge the bullet, you became the brunt of his frustration. I would say this: there's only one thing worse than working with Jerry Robbins, and that's not working with him. Because those days were few and far between, but we all wanted to be in his ballets. And they didn't fit your body per se the way the Balanchine ballets fit your body. Balanchine's ballets, for some reason, felt a little bit more natural. Jerry's took a little bit more work in some ways. Balanchine's technical demands were gigantic, but Jerry's nuances were very different. They were subtle and they were tiny. They were both challenges, but so that's a comparison of the two artists, Jerry and Mr. B. Balanchine started to take note of the enthusiasm that the dancers had for these pictures I was taking. And so he wanted to see them, and he wanted to see everything that I was doing. So I'm showing him my prints, and he was enthusiastic about them, and he was supportive. And he commented on my timing. He said, "Your timing is very good." And I said, "Well, my timing is a gift from you." You know, he understood that unlike life, in dance photography, there's a whole lot of time when you can get it wrong, and maybe a 250th of a second when you get it right. I mean, it's that fleeting moment that has to maintain movement, you know, and suggest that it's going to continue. He recognized my timing, and I just had to give it right back to him. Yeah, he used to do this too in class if I were doing a step. This was a short cut to telling me how bad I was. No, 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 and no, no, no. It was similar to the way Mr. Balanchine taught me as a dancer in the way that he guided me as a photographer. That first year I danced, he was very tolerant and very patient as I gained my sea legs. The same thing with the photography. In the beginning, good, good, better, more, sharper, better, more. Then after about a year, well, why would you shoot this angle? Or why this and not that? So he started to challenge me a little bit more. He said something to me that I carry with me. He said, "Don't destroy the magic, dear." When I showed him this picture from the wings that I shot, which I loved. The wings is where I spent a lot of time. Entrances and exits, you know, and then turning around and watching everybody in between. I love that vantage point. I love that perspective. But he said, "Well, look, you know, she may look good, but look at the man in the background in the ugly robe, scratching his head, or talking to somebody, or even if they're intent on the performance, we don't want the audience to see that. It wasn't designed for them to see it from that perspective." Or the side of a house that's one-dimensional from the wings, but is a stone cottage with great beauty and depth from the audience. So don't destroy the magic, dear. He also requested early on that I not photograph him at close range. And it wasn't an order, it was a request. He was so elegant. He said, "If you wouldn't mind, stay further away from me. You're welcome to photograph me." He might have been self-conscious about the way he looked. We always thought he was a beautiful man, but so I honored that throughout my photographic career. But now I'm juggling two full-time careers because I'm doing all kinds of work for the New York City Ballet. I'm dancing. If I'm not in a ballet, I'm running out to the audience. I'm photographing a premiere for a major publication. I'm coming back. I'm putting the camera down. I'm dancing in the last ballet. And I wanted to quit dancing. I thought I did. And every time I went to Mr. Balanchine and said, "You know, I really think I'd like to just photograph." And he said, "No, dear, I will tell you when I think you can support yourself as a photographer. It's not yet, okay? So keep dancing. Take yourself out of the harder roles. Have a little bit more time for the darkroom." So he was, you know, when people ask me what Mr. Balanchine was like, a simple answer would be he was part king and part parent. He cared very much about all of us. We were his hand-selected collection, so to speak. He collected shells, semi-precious stones. He saw the spark of the divine in each of us, and he studied us at his school before he decided to take us into the company. We were an emotional investment for him as well. So he wanted to make sure that I could stand on my own 2 feet, and he felt this way about everybody in the company. So when he saw that I had this potential future as a professional photographer, he was very relieved that one of his dancers, at least one more of his dancers, he didn't have to worry so much about. Because in spite of the fact that he was George Balanchine, he felt that we gave up so much for him. Can you imagine? That he wanted to make sure that we were okay. So he has a reputation for being arrogant, his nose in the air. No, he held his head high, which is a very different thing than having his nose in the air. So he was just wonderful with me with regard to this photography and the support. It was time for me, after several years in the company, as happy as I was as a dancer, to face the inevitable, which was my sexuality. Now, it's something that I was aware of my entire life, that I was attracted to men and girls. I had a girlfriend. I had a beautiful little girlfriend who was my sweetheart from the school, and we were still boyfriend and girlfriend into the early 70s in the company. And however innocent our love was, it was real, and I adored her. But I had this thing with my sexuality. I thought, why is this not going away? I think everybody's like this, and then it goes away like a pimple or something, because who could you talk to about it when you were a kid, and then you're older, and then you're older, and it's not going away. So I found a friend in the company, a close friend, whose work I admired enormously as a dancer, but more importantly, his integrity as a man. And he was in a successful relationship with another man, so I opened up to him in confidence, and I said, what's it like? And I think I am, I don't know. And over the next 2 years, I just grilled him about it. And one day I woke up and I thought, my goodness, I am gay. It was almost like a light switch. And I loved this person that way, but he was not available. He was in a relationship. So I knew I had to do something very serious about it. First step, I have to come clean with my girlfriend, Elise. So I told her, we were on tour, lots of tears, followed by anger, very rough. And then there's this awareness that I have that I'm gay. I don't know how to be gay. I don't know what to do about it, but I am. And I couldn't go to my far-right Republican, military, Greek, Orthodox, Catholic family and say, hey, I'm gay. Okay, talk to me about it. Hi, Dad. Have you digested the fact that your son wears makeup and tights for a living yet? You good with that? Great. P.S. I'm gay. Goodbye. I couldn't do that with my father. And this was the time I decided I'm going to go to Florida, where my parents were at the time, and come out to my mother. I don't even know if we used the term come out then. I went down to Florida. Dad, stay home. I'll talk to Mom. Took her out by the pool. And I said, Mom, remember the way I felt about Elise all of these years? She said, oh, we're so disappointed. We wanted you to marry and have kids. I said, well, we thought we were going to do that, but it didn't work out. I said, well, I feel that way about a man now. And I guess I'm gay, and I guess I'm a Democrat. I'm going to have to be a Democrat because I think gay people are supposed to be Democrats. And I'm gay, Mom. And she's shaking her head, tears coming down. Is it anything your father did? Is it anything I did? I said, no, Mom, no. I have had this problem that has plagued me since my childhood. I've never known what it was. And I think I've seen examples of dignified male couples. I know that I can be happy. She said, no, not that. Are you sure you're a Democrat? Are you sure? Thank you.